Hi, my name is Randy Lee. I'm with Apex Tactical Specialties, and this is our video tutorial on how to install our Apex Hard Sear made for the Smith & Wesson M&P series pistols. The first thing I'd like to do is make sure I'm working with an unloaded firearm. So I'm locking the slide back. I'm checking to make sure that I have nothing in the chamber, nothing in the magazine. Before I get going with actually tearing down and installing, what I want to do is just get a baseline trigger pull for what the original factory specification was. So what I'm going to do is use a Lyman digital trigger gauge, pull straight back as parallel as I can with the rest of the gun or the axis of the bore until I get to the point where the sear rolls away from the striker. So if you can see, we've got the measurement of 5 pounds 13 ounces, which is actually pretty good. Most brand new pistols will start out at about 6.5 or more pounds. To disassemble, the first thing I need to do is lock the slide back. I need to hit the disassembly tab that's inside the frame and move that forwards. Now I can strip the slide off of the frame, set that aside. There's a coil pin that holds the sear assembly in to the frame. So what I'm going to do is just remove that. In order to do that, you'll need a 1/8 inch punch. I use a 1/8 inch roll punch, which has a small button on the end to help pilot it to the center of that coil pin itself. It should come out fairly easily. On the brand new guns, it may take a little bit more tapping. But you can see I'm also using a piece of plastic just to protect the frame. Once I have that pin removed, now what I'm going to do is remove the sear assembly. And the easiest way I found to do it is actually to press back rearwards on the trigger and lift up using some small piece of plastic or a punch to remove that sear assembly out of its recess in the frame. There are several different versions of the M&Ps, and some will have a manual safety, in which case the manual safety assembly may come out with the rest of the sear assembly or the housing. So now I've got the sear assembly out. I'm going to remove the ejector off the side, and I'm keeping the sear assembly fairly level because there's a very small plunger and spring for the sear, and if you lose that in a carpet, it can be very, very difficult to find. Okay, so I've removed the sear. The next thing I need to do is take our Apex Hard Sear and replace it. Once I have the pin, sometimes it can be a little bit challenging, but if you have a small punch, you can use that as a pilot to help center and align the holes of the sear to the rest of the sear cage or the sear housing. So that gets popped in. The ejector gets put back into position. And now I can reinstall the sear housing assembly back into the frame. It should pretty much go in. If you have to force it, I would say that it probably isn't aligned. So we want to make sure that the parts go back in relatively easy. If you feel anything binding up, pull the sear assembly out because something's just misaligned, and the polymer in the frame can be shaved because obviously you have metal versus plastic. Okay, I have it in position. Now what I'm going to do is I just want to check the function of the sear before I go any further. So I'm using my roll pin punch again just to hold the sear housing in place. And all I'm doing is looking to make sure that the sear itself is actuating as I depress the trigger. And when I hold the trigger to the rear and kick the trigger bar off to the right, you should hear a snap as the sear resets. Now, when I pull the trigger bar should reset under the sear. And that's all I'm doing, is I just want to make sure that it's doing that every time. If it does not, that may mean that you have a part that is bent, like the trigger bar itself may be bent, or there may be something some sort of debris in the trigger or the sear housing assembly. But that looks pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is just reinstall that pin. Take the coil pin, insert it back into the frame, and then I'm going to tap it back in position. Once I get that started, now I can go in and just make sure that the housing assembly pin is in position and it's not protruding from either side, the left side or the right side, where it can start to irritate your hand. Okay, from there, I'm just going to reinstall the slide assembly onto the pistol. Work the action a few times. And just checking for the reset. I also have an action-proving dummy because I want to make sure that there's no issues with the safety of the firearm as far as it operating. So when I wrap the slide, the sear should engage, it should capture the striker, and I should be able to make sure that that functions the way it's intended. Let's get a trigger pull measurement now with the pistol with a new part in it. So again, basically pulling parallel with the axis of the bore. So if you can read this now, it's now measuring 4 pounds, 1.5 ounces, which is markedly different than what we started with. Typically you can expect around a 4 to 4.5 pound trigger pull. It depends on the actual frame size, like the H or the 45 version may have greater resistance, but it should still yield a very clean trigger pull and also a markedly shorter reset and over travel. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at www.apextactical.com, and if you have any other questions on any of our other products, please feel free to ask. Thank you very much.